Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com. And welcome to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Today I have a special guest. His name is Joshua Evans. Hey, Joshua, how are you?
Doing great. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you. So before we get started, let me just give our listeners and viewers a little bit of your background so they can get to know you. So Joshua is #1 best-selling author, TEDx programmer, keynote speaker, organizational culture expert, executive public speaking coach, and even more so also real estate investor, seems like it now, and a couple other things, right? So why don't you start by telling us more about you, your background, like what were you born and what was you growing up, when you were growing up, what was that like?
So I grew up in just a normal suburb outside of Houston, Texas, and I had 3 siblings, right? I was one of the middle children, and I was always doing crazy stuff. My goal was I was always trying to build businesses, which sounds crazy as like a kid, and but lemonade stands weren't like enough for me, and so my older sister had like a cotton candy maker, and so I took an extension cord and would run it down my street out to like the corner of our street. And so I would make cotton candy and lemonade because if you bought 2, right, it was a lot easier to get money from people for both those things. And it went even further. We used to mix up bug repellent out of just household stuff and try to sell it up and down the street. I got in trouble one time. And this is, I'm talking like I'm like 11 years old. I got in trouble for trying to sell timeshares to my parents' backyard for people to like come and camp like on occasion. And I got grounded for that one. But I was always very curious about building businesses and how people go about their lives. And I'm a very optimistic guy, right? It's just my natural bent. But all I saw in the world was opportunity. That's all I saw. And so, I love the title of your podcast, right? Because I think we can overcome anything with the right perspective and with the right help and the right people in our lives. We can overcome these things. But there's, especially right now, and I mean, how applicable is it right now when everybody has this sense of fear or anxiety or worry about what's going on? We need to take a moment to realize that the world isn't this big, dark, and gloomy thing, right? It is full of opportunities. And so I heard something the other day that made me really kind of think. Yeah. And if you think about like the lobsters, right? The live lobsters that were on the Titanic in the kitchen that were going to be served. And all of a sudden, the Titanic hits this iceberg. To them, it was a miracle, right? And all of a sudden, they're released back to the ocean. To everybody else, it's this tragedy. And so, I mean, perspective really brings in a lot of different things. And so I think it's about looking for those opportunities in life, not looking for the ways in which we're being held back. And so I know you feel the same way. And so that's kind of my origin story. I grew up just in a sleepy little suburb, always trying different things. Went to college for 5 years and communications. And then I was in sales, mostly in software and technology for about 10 years. Before I wrote a book accidentally, and then I started this whole new venture where I started my own company.
Wow, that's amazing. What drove you at an early age to have that kind of like that mindset of an entrepreneur? Like, was there something that or got you into like thinking of business? Because that's amazing to have like a cord going, from your house to the corner, like all that stuff, selling the backyard as timeshares. Like what kid thinks of that? And so, what was driving that?
Well, I had a really good model. So my father is an entrepreneur, right? He always had his 9-to-5 job, but he also had side businesses that he was, they weren't even side hustles because nobody knew that term back then. Yeah. But he had other companies that he would run. So, he had a whitewater rafting company that I grew up doing a lot of, right? So he was like a river guide on the weekends. And then, during the week, he was, a guy selling, color copiers at businesses. He had rock climbing gyms that he started and all these small little businesses constantly. And I think I saw that as a model for like, oh my goodness, okay, you don't have to just pick a single career, right? You don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher. I mean, like you can do several different things. And I think that opened my mind to the opportunity and the possibility that you don't need a single career or a single way to get income. You really need to, I mean, you really need to milk the world for all it's worth, right? And if you approach it with that, as I said, once again, that sense of opportunity, that sense of passion and excitement, I mean, there's so much out there, right? That was my model for it, right? On the other hand, my mother, she was kind of a grounding. She was the one that grounded me for some timeshares, but she was like, okay, I don't know if that's going to work. No, you can't try and build a roller coaster, like silly things like that you kind of run into as a child, that voice of reason. But I think it was my father's real vision, right, as far as an entrepreneur that set me on this trajectory. And I have 3 siblings, right, and none of them are entrepreneurs. Like none of them. They all have standard jobs. Like one's an engineer, 2 of them are teachers. And then I'm like the crazy one that like works out of my home office and owns real estate and does all this crazy things.
That's awesome. So talk about your book. So how did you stumble on writing your book? What was the purpose? Was it a school project or how did that come about?
So I had been in the working world for, I think about 7 or 8 years, just in the corporate world, right? Where I worked for a software company. I really enjoyed my work. I made great money. Love the people I work with because that's who I am, right? I throw myself into whatever is in front of me, right? And I got into an argument with a coworker. And so I was the sales guy, right? Business development. And then I had like a technical guy because I'm not a geoscientist. I'm not a technical geek. I just don't know it. And so I would always take somebody with me. And we went to this meeting one time. I just started asking questions from this potential client. I was like, well, and we went in there to talk about, implementing our software at one of their offices. It's like, but don't you have 13 offices? I mean, you're kind of leaving them in the lurch if they don't get it too.
Yeah.
I was like, we could build it out for 13 offices. We'll do this giant pilot project and everybody in your organization can test it. It's going to be great. And the client's like, oh, that sounds awesome. And I'm seeing dollar signs, right? And my technical guy sitting here like pulling his hair out like, oh my God, what is Josh signing me up for?
Yeah.
And so we walk out of there and I've got this just giant grin ear to ear. I was like, man, this is huge. This is going to be so much money. It's going to be awesome. He's like, Josh, this is going to be so much work. I was like, what are you upset about? He's like, well, I mean, why are you telling me we can do this? He's like, well, can we? He's like, well, we can, but it's going to be a lot of work. And I was like, that's what the paychecks are for. It's for the work, man. Like, why are you upset about this? And that night I kind of went home and my wife was working late that evening. And I'm sitting there by myself with like my dog and like drinking scotch. This is before I had kids. And I'm just sitting there by myself, right, with like nothing on my mind. I was like, why on earth was he so pessimistic? Why was he just so negative about the whole situation? And like I started writing down like he should have been enthusiastic like me. He should have had passion for what we were trying to accomplish. And if he didn't have passion, he should go find something else to do. And so I started just venting like in dictation mode to my iPad at the time. And it turned into more and more words. And over the next like year and a half, it turned into like 30,000 words.
Wow.
And it just kind of sat there. And then by happen chance, I ran into a woman I used to work with, and she was having lunch with a friend of hers. And I just said, hey, I just want to say hi and introduce myself. And it turns out she was a publisher. And we started chatting. She goes, I want to publish your book. And I said, let's do it. And so she published my book. It became a #1 bestseller. And I said, okay, well, I'm just going to quit my job. This is what I'd rather do anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing ever since. It's a really weird thing. It was all by accident. I was really just venting about this one, and this guy, right? His name was David. He has no idea that he was like the inspiration for the book, right? But he was the catalyst, right? His negative attitude set me off to where I wrote this book, literally all about enthusiasm and how I think a lot of people start there, right, from an enthusiastic place in their lives. But the day-to-day frustrations, the small minutiae, the problems, the bills, the attitudes from others, it all kind of detracts from that, right? So we kind of lose that spark. And I wrote this book to help people kind of reclaim that, right? And to own that again. Yeah. That's why, and the book itself is called Enthusiastic You.
Enthusiastic You. You guys got to pick up that book. Definitely sounds very interesting. I can see that in when I used to work in corporate America. I forget who. It must have been like a coworker or somebody, but something very similar to what you just mentioned, right? Like it's like when you go for an interview, you go to a job interview and you love the job. You're like, I'm excited for this job. Then you get the notice that you got the job and you start working. And 1 year goes by, and maybe you're still very enthusiastic and you're happy about it. Another year goes by, and now your demeanor is kind of lowering. And before you know it, you're hating that job, and then you want to go find another one. And it happens to be that I think a lot of people go through that cycle, right? It's like every 2 to 5 years, or give and take, you're kind of jumping from job to job because you had interest at the beginning, and then that diminished as the time went by. You lose that interest, and then you want to go and find the other motivation, which is another job. And I find that very interesting to see, or to even understand why we as people tend to go through that cycle, right? And it reminds me of this one cycle, which is the drama cycle, where you become the victim, you're the perpetrator at one point, or you're the rescuer. And so I can see that people going through that cycle of work, they're also going through the phase of, I'm the rescuer, I'm rescuing somebody from this, I'm the victim, now why me kind of aspect, or I'm the perpetrator because I'm mad at the entire world. And you just keep going through that cycle. And when you live in that cycle, it's very difficult to step out and see the possibilities that you might have, right? And so, yeah, I think you're definitely getting that. What you talked about in your book is definitely going to be something that can be very relatable to a lot of people that are watching or listening to this today. Especially in today's era.
And you're totally right. And that's the thing, right? People think that, okay, I'm going to jump to a new job and this one I'll like better, right?
Right.
But it's not necessarily, it's not the job that's messing with you. It's your view of the world. It's your view of that role. And so on day one of any job, everybody's excited, right? Everybody shows up early. They've got their coffee. I'm going to do this. It's going to be great. And then it's day 500 where they want to stab their coworker. Yeah. So the thing that happened between those two times is not that your role changed that much. It's that your view, right, your perspective of the role changed, because now you're familiar with everything, right? Yeah. Now you know all like the problems and all the things that go on behind the scenes. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I should have hated this job from the beginning.
Right.
And it's really, it's not that the job's that bad, right? It's not a crappy job that's holding you back. It's your crappy attitude. So
yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then if you were to go back, what were some lessons that you learned from life? Were there any major lessons or obstacles that you overcame going through kind of your journey before you got into becoming a full-time entrepreneur?
There's a lot of lessons out there. I think one of the big ones is that not everybody wants you to succeed. And it sounds crazy to say that, right? Because I'm a very positive guy, and I tend to look for the better in a situation and look for the good in people. But man, I came across a few people who I didn't even realize until after the fact were trying to hamstring me, right? They were trying to hinder me from achieving what I wanted. And so I'll go way back, and I don't know, years and years ago, back in the corporate world, I came to a realization. My direct report boss, the person I reported to, I didn't necessarily like, but I did what he said because he's my boss. He ended up getting fired. And then I found out that behind the scenes, he had been totally subversive and totally demeaning towards me. And so it had been holding me back in my career. And I don't know if he was doing it for some sort of personal reason, right? Or some sort of, worry about me taking over his role or something like that. But his personality was found out, and they ended up letting him go because he was such a bad influence on the rest of the team, and because he was talking badly about his the people that reported to him. And so I didn't even find that until later, but I had this realization like, oh my goodness, what other people out there might be doing this, right? So not everybody wants you to succeed. In fact, a lot of people like to watch others not succeed because it helps them justify not trying their hardest. I don't know if you've ever seen that, right? But you have this person like, oh yeah, good for you. You bought some real estate. Oh man, I wouldn't want to get the calls in the middle of the night to deal with real estate. And you're like, why are you raining on my parade? And so I think we have those moments, right? And these energy vampires that kind of try to suck away the joy of what you're feeling because it makes them feel better, which is a sad thing, right? We should all take happiness and pride in other people's joy. But not everybody does that. And so I wish I had known that earlier in my career, and I might have been a little bit more, maybe I shouldn't have known that, right? Because if I did know that, maybe I would have been more withheld, and I wouldn't have been my natural passion itself. And so, it's a good question. And kind of looking back on it, I don't know if I would change it a lot, but there are definitely lessons like that out there where I want everybody to root for each other, but it's not really the case, right? Everybody has their own battles that they're fighting.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned, and I think it's very true. And hopefully the people that are listening to this got onto that. And you're right. I think that somebody is doesn't want to see you succeed because they cannot see it for themselves, right? So because they cannot see it for themselves, they want you to fail. They want you to not succeed on whatever it is that you're doing. And when I think about it, a lot of people tend to do that, right? Like, if they don't see it for themselves, it's like, why does my friend here needs to be where, he's heading, right? Or whatever the case may be. And I think that leads to my next question: how critical it is to be part of a community or a group of people that are either edifying you or maybe not so much helping you out in your journey, like, the average five per se.
Well, see, I've always liked that idea, right? You're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And so, I mean, it means that maybe you got to get rid of some of your friends, which sounds really crazy. But I honestly believe in that, because if anything, people that are not better off than you, right, but that are striving and that are ambitious, those are the types of people that pull you along with it, makes you want to be more ambitious. Now, the times when I was at my least productive is when I was hanging out with people that were okay with being unproductive. I mean, that's literally what it is. I think who we surround ourselves with sets the tone for our own lives. And so I think, especially on my journey, right, as an entrepreneur, when I first did that, I was seeking out anybody that was doing what I wanted to be doing, right? Just trying to surround myself with people that had that tone of ambition and opportunity and excitement about what they're pursuing, so that I could kind of latch on and kind of watch what they're doing and be part of that world. Because it's easy to succumb to other people's negativity. It just is. And that's one of the hardest things, is to overcome those sorts of personalities and those sorts of attitudes. I literally remember somebody very, very, very close to me when I quit my job to pursue this full time. He goes, "John, what are you thinking?" He's like, you have a young kid at home. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, and now he's questioning me. And I think it's just because he had his own shortcomings or his own, not self-loathing, right, but his own regrets about where he was. He didn't want to watch me go and take this step on my own. And it's those sorts of moments where it shows your true friends, right? The people that are there to cheer for you when you need that help, right? And to push you towards something better, not to hold you back to what they're used to. Because a lot of people, they have a definition of you, right? And they don't want to have to change their definition. They want you to fit into their box.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's the reality of the situation. A lot of people want you to be this person, right? And you don't have to be.
Yeah, you can definitely. Yeah, you're right. I think a lot of times you have to. I always say, as much as you want to be able to do things to obviously attract people and build rapport, build relationships. At the end of the day, though, you're not going to be able to please everybody. Number one. Number two, the one person that you have to, in my opinion, that you have to please, you have to show that you're growing, you have to give them all of that, is that person that you see in the morning when you wake up in front of the mirror. In other words, yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the person you really have. That's your competition. That's the one that you want to prove that you can do this. Once you can do that, I think everybody else would either going to fit in or not, right? And I've lost a lot of friends throughout my journey too. And sometimes I wonder, like, why, I don't think I've changed, other than I become better. I feel like I'm working every day to become a better person and a better version of my past self. Yet you tend to lose. Sometimes people just fall off, your radar because of that growth that you're going through. Right. And so definitely, I think at the end of the day is what, do it for yourself more than anything. Right. So in terms of being a keynote speaker, a TEDx programmer, what are some of the things that you do in those areas?
So I do a lot of keynote speaking to a lot of different types of organizations. Companies will bring me in to do like a company retreat for their executive team, or I'll come out and do like a big event for a few thousand people where they have, they need a big motivational speaker. And I absolutely love those sorts of things because it allows me to really wear my passion on my sleeve. And the biggest thing I like to teach on is how people need to have purpose behind what they're doing. I don't care what your job is, right? Changing jobs isn't going to give you purpose or give you more meaning or fulfillment. It's about how you view the work that you're doing. And so that's what I love to speak on. And I mean, obviously I bring a lot of energy and I use a lot of stories, but I absolutely think that everybody can derive purpose and fulfillment from the work that they're doing if they can look at it from the right perspective, right? About what it means to them and to the people that they're serving. I don't care if you're an astrophysicist. I don't care if you're a maintenance person. It doesn't matter. Like, you can derive a lot of purpose. And some of the happiest people I know out there have jobs that some would consider menial, but no, they know that what they're doing makes an impact and changes lives. It's wild to think about how others demean certain people's professions. Literally, there's so much to be had and so much to be respected out of any profession, right? And so I think people can do that, people can have that, and companies seem to want their employees to have purpose in their work, because they've realized when employees care about the work that they're doing, they work harder, they work better hours, they're more productive, and they're loyal. And so it's pretty interesting. So I do events all over this. I was up until COVID. I do events all over the U.S. and a few international places, but mostly in the U.S. for these large professional associations, and then also for a lot of companies that are looking for a way in which they can get their employees re-engaged in the work and to kind of set up this culture where everybody really has fulfillment in their work. So, yeah.
So if somebody was to ask and say, "Hey, Josh, how did I find my purpose?" How do you respond to that?
I send them a bill. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, right.
No, here's the thing. I think when we first start a job, we see it from the outside, right? We see the role or the job from the outside, like, hey, and we can see what it's doing for us, right? It's going to help me pay my bills and feed my kids and pay my mortgage and all those sorts of things, right? So we see those surface level things that it accomplishes by having the job, and then we see the actual facility, right? Like, it looks like this gleaming place that we're going to get to go be a part of, and it's so exciting. And then we get in there, and what happens is we start focusing on the things that our role is and the things that our role does, right? So literally, we'll say, okay, this is my title, right? And it sits in our email, and it sits on your business cards. That's what people call you by. It's like, hey, what do you do? And you say your title for that company. The problem is that's such surface level stuff, right? It's not compelling at the end of the day. And then there's like, well, what does somebody in that role do, right? Well, what somebody's role does is all the tasks, the functions, the responsibilities, right? Like, so checking emails, or, working on this or fixing that, like those small little tasks, little functions and responsibilities, right? All those things on like a job requisition form, right? Mm-hmm. Right. On just a job description. That's just what somebody in that role does. And that's not compelling either. And the problem is when we wake up and we go into an office or we go into work, all we're looking at is that list of things that we have to do. Just the things that someone in our role does. And none of those things are enough to make you realize the meaning and the purpose behind the role that you're accomplishing. So what I have people do, it's a simple little chart, right? So what the role is, I have that, write it down. Then what somebody in that role does, write that down. And then the third thing I have people do is write down what it means. And this is what it means to you personally to have a job, what it means to the people that you serve, right? Because I did this with somebody the other day. And so he's a plumber, right? It's just a great conversation, just out of nowhere. I think we were both waiting for our cars to get the oil change, something like that. I was like, hey, tell me about yourself. He goes, oh, I'm a plumber. It's like, oh, cool. So what do you do? He's like, well, I do plumbing mostly for this, that, and this. It's like, cool. That's pretty neat. He's like, yeah. I was like, do you not realize what a plumber means? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'll tell you what a plumber means, because I had an emergency where I needed a plumber, and it meant, right, that I had, it means the world to me, right? I had like some old friends coming in town to stay at my home, and all of a sudden, like, I had a water pipe burst. Like, what having a plumber ready to go means to me? It meant peace of mind. At the end of the day, this one plumber I could think of in my mind was the savior of my entire weekend with my friends, because he was available for me. And people don't realize that. I'm just switching out this, PVC for a different one. No, it's not like that at all. What you do has so much more meaning. If you can get to that emotional place, which a lot of people don't want to do because they don't want that emotional connection to their role, or at least they justify not having that. Right. If you can get to that place, right, then of course you're going to have meaning. Of course you're going to feel like there's purpose behind the work that you're doing. And I don't care what your role is. It's fascinating to watch people kind of make that connection and go, oh my goodness, you're right. And so it's pretty fascinating. So there's a great analogy I've heard about this construction foreman walking through this construction yard. And he comes across these like three masons, and they're working with bricks and mortar. And he comes to the first one and goes, hey, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm laying bricks. And he comes to the second mason, and the foreman goes, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm building a wall. Then he comes to the third mason. He goes, excuse me, what are you doing? And that third mason says, well, I'm building a cathedral. I think if we can get everybody to that cathedral place, that last place, not only are we going to be smiling on our way into work on Monday morning, right? We're going to be leaving on Friday with a sense of fulfillment and purpose in what we're doing. And so that's why that's what I have people do. That's how you can derive purpose, is get beyond what the role is and what the role does. You need to be talking about what the role means. And that's where the real rubber meets the road.
I love that, and I have heard that analogy, and you're right. Now that you mentioned it again, it's true. Is what is that? Whatever it is that you're doing, doesn't matter how small or big you think it might be. It is that big difference, right? That is making for somebody else's life, and you're right. When you look at it from that perspective, you can definitely see things from a different lens or a different point of view, and it makes the whole difference at that point, right? And I think it was Jim Rohn. He said, you have to, if you're a salesperson, you got to make that call, and that's not just a mediocre call or anything like that. That is the best call you did. If you're a book writer, it is not just a regular sentence. It is the best sentence you've written, the best word. Like whatever you do, just see it as that is the best work you've done. Don't think it's mediocre, because when you start seeing it from that perspective, man, like again, going back to that whole positivity and just changing your way of thinking, the way you see things, it changes all the different aspects in that life, right? For you and for the others that are around you. So that's pretty awesome. Now, for you, what does it mean to be successful?
See, that's a very, very weighted question. I think that success can be judged a million different ways. And if it's monetarily, fine. I have a dollar figure in mount, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. $42 million, right? That's what I consider successful. Is it? Not to everybody. That's such a variable thing. And it being so subjective, I think success really depends upon, as you said, being able to wake up in the morning and look myself in the mirror and be proud of what I've accomplished the day before and excited about what I'm going to accomplish that day. Success can mean being able to spend more time with my family. But as people have seen, even over this, current crisis that we're facing, maybe I don't want that much more time with my family. But I think success is it's so variable for each of us, and it changes, right? My definition of success when I was 25 is absolutely different from what it is now that I'm 37, right? It's totally different, right? Because now I have a family and I have kids, and my definition of success is more about how I get to spend my time, right, than about how much money I have, right, or how people in the outside world view me. Because I think a lot of us spend, especially early on in our careers, trying to impress other people or trying to look like we're successful, and it's not about looking successful to other people. It's about feeling successful down here. And I think that's where it really derives from. So what is success defined as for me? I feel successful. I don't really care if people think I look successful or not, but it having this sense of fulfillment is more important than feeling successful, I think, to me. And I'm absolutely fulfilled. I'm filled to the brim. Yeah,
that's awesome. No, I love that. I definitely love that. And then in terms of your obviously you're very positive. You have a lot of energy. What are your habits? Like, do you have daily habits? Tony Robbins refers to them as rituals, daily rituals. Do you have anything that you do on a day-to-day basis that just puts you in this great positive state of mind?
I literally, I wake up like this. It's to the point to where like my wife is like, you need to settle down till I have coffee. Like that's how bad it is. But I do have rituals, and they've been a little bit awire recently since the kids aren't in school and like there's all these crazy things. So my normal ritual is waking up, saying good morning to the kids, making coffee, saying hi, and then I go and I'll meditate. I'll do meditation, and then I'll do it's kind of a one hand in prayer, one hand in like a gratitude journal, and then I'll start my day. And that's how I love to start my day the best. And then usually toward the end of the day, I'll do some sort of physical activity that's a bit exhilarating for me, right? And so I got like this balance board, or I'll go on a mountain bike ride, or those sorts of things, just kind of get my blood flowing, right? Because I love adrenaline, right? I'm a junkie for it, and I just don't get the opportunity to do it enough. Those are my perfect days, and then time with my children and my wife, and I love it, right? And I literally, and one of the things in this, I'm going to call it a ritual because I do it every day, is I grill every day. I'm at my grill making steaks, or I made sausage yesterday. I don't know what I'm going to do tonight, but I love it. It feels ritualistic because I'm doing something I love, right? Yeah. And my kids are playing in the yard, and it feels so natural.
Right.
So I mean, as far as ritual goes, there's one, right?
Yeah.
I like having those sorts of routines, but it's always fun to kind of break them, because then you get to come back and realize like how comfortable they are.
Right.
Mind you, we all have bad routines too, right? Or bad rituals that can hold us back as well, right? And so I think, I'll eat lunch like working, right? And then I'll have like a full sleeve of Oreos. That's a bad ritual, but I do it all the time. I literally have Oreos right here that I'm going to eat when it comes to lunchtime. I just know it. And I know it's holding me back, but you know what?
Yeah. I love Oreos with cookie. I mean, with milk. Sorry,
Oh
even
yeah,
better.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
so yeah, two things is that number one, I'll definitely be there later on today for the grilling, or tomorrow, whenever I can make it to Dallas.
Come on out,
yeah, right.
Houston.
Houston, there you go. Sorry, that's right. So, so no, yeah, and then yeah, the other thing too is like, I realized too, like, back before I started my journey of being an entrepreneur, I didn't really have any. I didn't think it was critical for me to have any kind of rituals or habits for that per se. And I think a lot of people tend to drown themselves in this little screen or some sort of screen, either before they go to sleep or when they wake up. Is like one of the first things that we do, or one of the last things that we do. And I realized that tends to be negative programs, and it tends to be things that can really set the unconscious mind into a different level. So what is your belief, your thoughts when it comes down to the working the mind, or the positive programs that go into your mind from that aspect?
We're constantly being influenced, no matter what you think. Like, every little thing influences you. I just need to look at the news to find out what's going on. No, you are literally programming, you're conditioning yourself towards what they want. And here's the thing. I mean, regardless if you agree with whatever news station you listen to or not, right? Whatever it is, their goal is to get you to come back and listen to more news. And so it behooves them to create fear, anxiety, hatred, anger, those sorts of things, right? But all you're doing, right, is allowing somebody else to rent space in your brain and to kind of take over your operating procedures. And so I try to avoid all sorts of media, whether it's social or traditional media, in the mornings. Like, there's no reason for it, right? Like, it literally will not help. It will not change my day, right? I mean, if a volcano erupted, I'm going to find out about it, right? My mom's going to text me and she'll let me know, right? Somebody will tell me, Josh, you know what? There's a pandemic. Don't go outside or wear a mask. Like, you'll find out. But we justify this stuff. We justify letting ourselves do these things, and then we rationalize the impact that they have, right? Not thinking that there's a connection. Yet we know, like, things affect children really easily. We know children are influenced. Like, don't watch that show because it has bad language in it, or don't hang out with little Jimmy because he's a bad influence. We know that, right? But as adults, we like justify and rationalize. No, I can watch. I'm an adult. I can look at the news and it doesn't impact me. Or I can look at social media and I'm not going to get angry about what somebody posted. No, you're just rationalizing it. And as adults, I think we're more susceptible to it. I'll give you a good example. The other day, for some ridiculous reason, I never go on, right? I happened to open up Facebook, and a friend of mine posted something that was absolutely infuriating. I'm sure you're okay. You're like, what did he put? Because everyone wants to know what he said. Well, here's what he said. He goes, "I'm so excited. 2 hours until Wheels Up to Tahiti." Here's the thing. I'm actually happy for him, right? I spitefully hit like or whatever. Yeah. But here's how it influenced the rest of my day. Now, the first thing I did when I got into my office, I'm looking at how much are flights to Tahiti. Right?
Oh, yeah.
What's the best time of year to go? Do you know what the best time of year to go to Tahiti is?
Right now, probably.
All year.
All year. Okay. Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden my entire morning is off on this tangent, right? It's off the rails where it should be, all because I allow myself to get influenced. So even if it's something good, like you're jumping on Facebook to look at cats or the new meme of the week, you're still influencing yourself. And if you're not choosing what's influencing you, then you're being influenced by others. Yeah. Just pure and simple what it is.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't think of that, the positive influences too. You're right. When I see it from that perspective. Josh, I know I definitely have a good time talking to you, and I respect your time. So I have a couple more questions before I let you go.
Absolutely.
Number one is, what is next for you? What do you have coming up for you in the next couple of months or weeks?
Well, I had a whole lot of events I was supposed to be speaking at, and those all got canceled because I'm not even allowed to fly. And so I think I probably canceled about 15 round-trip flights to different cities I was supposed to be speaking at. So that's kind of gone to the side. But I'm doing a lot of virtual sessions now with people. I'm still looking at real estate, still owning real estate, looking to buy more real estate, those sorts of things. And because of this time, I had like 2 or 3 books like on the back burner that I've been working on and writing and kind of developing. And now it's a perfect time that I'm really able to throw myself into it. And I've made tremendous progress on one of the books so far. And I'm very excited coming out of this. Hopefully it'll be a book that's tangible to people in leadership roles at organizations that they can kind of take to help them transform their culture and bring purpose to the workplace. And so that's what I'm working on right now. And that's what I see coming in the next few months is this new book that I think is just going to be awesome. A little bit bigger picture, right? In the next couple of years, I plan on doing some large style retreats to help individuals kind of reclaim their purpose in their life and find that fulfillment. I think everybody kind of searches for it. But that, I mean, once again, that's more than months down the road. That's probably a year or 2 years down the road for those. But yeah,
that's awesome.
So that's what it looks like for me for now.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And if people wanted to connect with you and maybe find out more about the things you do or how you might be able to help them, where can they find you?
Yeah, so they can come up by the house and we'll grill. And no, I'm just joking.
That's awesome.
The best way to find me is you can jump on my website, joshuamevans.com, or you can check me out on any social media. It's at Enthusiastic You. Now, I don't really go on there much, to be honest with you, as I just said, but you're welcome to check it out. And I post remotely to all these things, right? And so, or LinkedIn's always, that is a platform that I absolutely love because it's a professional platform. It's affluent people. And we're talking about things that actually matter. And there's fewer memes, more business, right? So that's the way I kind of look at it. And so if you want any platform, you can check me out. That's the best platform to find me. That's the most authentic me. Yeah. So.
And that's also the same ad Enthusiastic.
Actually, for that one, it's the Joshua M. Evans on LinkedIn. You'll find me. I mean, there's a lot of Joshua Evanses out there, but you'll find me. I'm pretty easy to find.
Yeah, definitely.
It's this face with like a blue suit on.
Awesome. I love it. And then you've given us a lot of great tips. So if you were to give us one last tip in terms of what people can do now, regardless of what they're going through, what kind of challenges they have, what will be one thing that they can do to start overcoming that challenge?
Okay, and it's so simple. Do 3 things, right? So sit down, write down 3 things you've accomplished in your life, right? 3 things that you're proud of that you've accomplished. That's it. Write down 3 things that you've done. Like I've run a half marathon, or I summited Mount Kilimanjaro, or I was the first in my family to graduate college. Whatever it is, you can be as boastful as possible. This is for you. The second thing I have people do is write down 3 things that they're grateful for. Right? What are 3 things that you're thankful for, right? Because being grateful for things, we all know how valuable that is because all the small problems don't seem nearly as big if we have stuff that we're thankful for. And then the third thing is write down 3 huge goals that you're trying to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years, right? So literally it helps deal with the past because if you've achieved great things in the past, it makes you think that the things you have ahead of you are a lot more attainable, right? And having those goals means you're aiming at something. Zig Ziglar said, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. But the one I like more is what Leonardo da Vinci said, where it's the doom of man, not that he aims too high and he misses his target, but that he aims too low and he hits it. And so that's why goals are just so important. So there you go. Do those 3 things. Write down 3 things that you've accomplished that you're proud of. Write down 3 things that you're grateful for, and then write down 3 things that you're trying to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years.
I love that.
I would do.
Yeah.
All the problems fall away when you have those things set up.
No, and you're hitting, like you said, you're hitting kind of like the 3 different timelines, right? I mean, you look at the past instead of worrying about the past being a burden or some of the things that you didn't do so good. You focus on the great things you accomplished, which brings a joy and happiness into your life at that moment. Then you look at being grateful. A lot of times we forget to being grateful in the now moment. I love that. And then, looking at the future, what are some of the things that I want to be able to do? So I feel like you're hitting all the different timelines and each one being impacting you positively, which sometimes we forget that. So that's
absolutely
awesome.
Well, good.
Definitely. Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to say before I let you go?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun. What a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Great. Well, definitely thank you so much for being here again. And for the rest of you guys, please make sure you like, share, comment this podcast. We definitely want to hear back from you. You can find us anywhere in any platform where you can find your favorite platform for the podcast. And please check us out for the next episodes coming up. Have a great day. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, Thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.